couple of weeks ago, I made the top 10 movies that I hate but everybody else loves. This week, we're going to do the opposite with the top 10 movies I love but everybody else hates. As per usual, if you disagree with me, you are automatically wrong and an irredeemable person in the eyes of everyone in the entire world, no questions asked. I'm kidding, if you disagree, that's fine. We each have our own opinions, and isn't that what makes the world so interesting and dangerous? Anyways, on to number 10, 8 Crazy Nights. Those of you who've seen my video, The Complete History of 8 Crazy Nights, might be a little confused. At the end, I called it boring and 5 out of 10 or something like that. But I'll be honest, as much as I don't really like this movie, I also love it. It's the same relationship I have with that Fox show Alan Gregory, where no matter how bad or boring or broken I find it, I keep coming back to watch it because there are so many things that are just fascinating, you know? Like how it tries to be everything at once and then fails at kind of all of them. There are also some aspects that I feel don't get enough praise. Of course, everybody talks about how wonderful the animation is, and yes it is, until they have to drop the frame rate towards the end. But there's also the score, or the fact that this is one of the very few mainstream Hanukkah movies. And yes, I also have to give credit to the performers. I don't like Whitey's voice whatsoever, but everybody else does a great job. That includes Adam Sandler playing the roles of Davy and Eleanor. So, yes, is it a good movie overall? Definitely not. Is it the most entertaining thing in the world? I wouldn't say so. But dang, it's got its hooks in me and I just keep coming back again and again. Number 9. Rob Reiner's North. Again, another movie that's not good at all. But unlike 8 Crazy Nights, this movie is a fantastic watch. Albeit not for the reasons that the movie wanted it to be, because this is one of the best movies to just put on with a group of friends who have no idea what this is and watch their horrified reactions. I get what this movie is going for. It's supposed to be both an homage to travelogues from days gone by, and also the world from the eyes of a young child, one who's supposedly the smartest kid in the world and who should know better than believing that the world is made up of these stereotypes, but I digress. But just because I understand the aims doesn't mean I agree with the end result. It's just so broken, so flawed, but man, it's a good time. And I think it's such a good time partially because, objectively, it's a well put together film. I'm not talking about in terms of the writing or the pacing or anything like that. I mean visually, it's a really good looking film, not to mention that the actors are all on point. It has Elijah Wood as the main character. I mean, come on, has he ever turned in a bad performance? Maybe it's not the best thing ever, because it most certainly isn't. But in some way, it's one of the funniest movies I've ever seen, so I've gotta give it credit. Number 8, Batman and Robin. We're getting into the transition period here. We're starting to get into the movies that I don't feel are bad, and ones that I legitimately enjoy instead of looking at them through a guilty pleasure point of view. Batman and Robin, in my opinion, is a little bit of both. It's not the best movie in the world, and it's not the most well put together, especially in comparison to Batman 1989 and Batman Returns. But, I don't know. If you disassociate this movie from the other two, then I guess it's alright. Like I said in this video here, Batman Forever is worse than Batman and Robin. It's pretty much just a big screen adaptation of the 1960s show. Right up there with the cheesy dialogue, the phony effects, the cheese just oozing out of every frame. Granted, that wasn't exactly the main goal behind Batman and Robin, but that is certainly the end result. It's definitely a popcorn movie, something you have to turn your brain off while watching, and hey, when you do, at least if you're me, you'll have a great time. It's flawed, absolutely. But is it really one of the worst things ever? Something so horrible that Joel Schumacher himself had to come out and apologize for? Maybe at the time, but not so much anymore. I think it's just one of those movies that, when you remove it from the context of the time it came out in, it ends up being a lot better. I know that not a lot of people can do that though, and hey, that's fine. I totally understand. That's not really something I have a problem with, so Batman and Robin is A-okay with me. More or less. Number 7. Summer Rental. This isn't going to be the only John Candy movie on this list. He's my favorite actor, so yeah, make of that what you will. It seems like people don't really care too much for Summer Rental. It's just kind of lame, the jokes don't work, it's stretched out too long, everybody is stiff except John Candy who tries too hard. Personally, I don't see it. I do think that the first half of the film is better though. When it becomes about the sailing competition, it sort of loses me. But then again, Great Outdoors loses me when it becomes a search for the twins after they get lost in the storm. This film, I think, just gets a bad rap. Maybe it's because it's being compared to other John Candy greats, but I think there's a lot of stuff that works here really well, especially the fake out in the first third. They're setting up that John Candy and his family come to this house and it's beautiful, only for it to turn out to be the wrong place, and their real summer vacation destination is this dumpy old house that's not fit for human life. It goes without saying that John Candy carries this movie though. If it wasn't for his chaotic energy or his spontaneous spirit, I think this movie would just be okay. But as it stands, there are a lot of good laughs here, some likable characters, and contrary to what others might say, some good performances. Number 6. Thor: The Dark World. I don't get the hate. I just don't understand whatsoever. I mean, maybe it's because I'm not as attached to the Infinity Stone story arc or whatever, but I thought this was a worthy sequel to Thor 1. It picks up where the first one left off and adds to the story rather than just repeats it. It has a good balance of action and comedy, unlike some other Marvel movies I could name. But what I don't think gets enough attention in this movie is the scope. That climax is one of the most exciting things I've seen in a Marvel movie to date. Everything just feels so big and important, and even when there's not objective action going on screen, you feel like the moments have weight. There are some serious consequences, and some of the biggest we've seen in the Marvel story up until this point. But with that being said, the main thing I see people dissing Thor: The Dark World for is being boring. Of course, I'm sure we can all agree a movie doesn't have to be constant action in order to be entertaining, but I feel that the strength in this movie, aside from the scale, is the way that the characters interact. They've all got good chemistry and good lines, whether they be comedic or dramatic. And I think, as a whole, it works as a cohesive picture. That proper balance of knowing when to use the action or the humor and when to have the character development scenes really helps Thor: The Dark World shine. But whether we like this movie or not, I think we can all agree that it's better than most of, if not all of the offerings Marvel has given us lately. The less we think about those, the better. Number 5. Rock-a-Doodle. I've already reviewed this movie once before. Rock-a-Doodle's criminally underrated. If you can get past the monotone, croaky voice from when I didn't really know how to talk in a microphone very much, then by all means, go ahead and give it a shot. It's got great art, some good characters, some interesting themes, and while yes, there are some certain aspects that could have used one more rewrite, as a whole, it's a fun ride that, yes, ushered the decline of Don Bluth, but just because something isn't as good as what came before it, doesn't mean it's bad. It's also the first Don Bluth movie to be a full musical. And man, I love that country and opera soundtrack. Like, it doesn't blend well at all, but that's kind of the point, and the film really has fun with it. It's also intentionally silly. Like, it's not trying to be this big, dark tale like American Tail or Land Before Time. It's just fun. I can understand why Don Bluth might have wanted to go this direction. After all, he'd been doing dark movies that put kids through a big emotional roller coaster again and again for so long. Why not try a little something brighter, or something a little bit different from his usual style? As we've learned with Titan AE, that never seems to go over well with the audiences now, does it? Unless you're Anastasia. Go figure, I guess. Number 4, Wagons East. This is going to make me lose a lot of credibility out here on YouTube, isn't it? Well, hey, I'm retiring soon, so I don't care. 0%? 0% on Rotten Tomatoes? Are you kidding me? While it doesn't compare to what other John Candy movies have come before it, Wagons East is still a fun time. It's got a creative premise with people who come out west not liking it out there, so they decide to go back east, only for the leader of the Donner Party to lead them back. And in my eyes, it's got some good characters and more good jokes than bad. Not everything works, and as is the case with Summer Rental, it does sag around the last third, but I still consider it fun. It's just so strange and off the wall that I can't help but laugh every time I watch it. But unlike Summer Rental, this movie would still be funny to me if John Candy wasn't in it. Granted, he's most certainly the best character and has some of the biggest laughs, but the rest of the cast also pulls their weight. This is often considered one of the worst comedy movies of all time, being one with no good laughs, just having shocking and offensive material or something. Even Billy HL, one of the former owners of this channel, can't stand this thing, but I'll stand my ground. I like Wagons East. I think it's funny. I think it's legitimately enjoyable throughout most of its runtime, and I don't care what anybody says. Not even you, Siskel and Ebert. I mean, did we watch the same movie? Did I watch the same movie as anybody? I'm starting to think not. Number 3, Hoodwinked. Yes, I know, Hoodwinked has a die-hard cult following now, but that wasn't always the case, nor is it still the mainstream narrative. People always lump this thing with all those other Shrek knockoffs that came out around this time as just something that was trying to cash in on something popular and isn't worth a second thought. However, contrary to popular belief, Hoodwinked was never once envisioned as anything similar to Shrek, regardless of what the advertisements might say. But even if it was somehow this nefarious Shrek ripoff, it's still a well-made movie. Granted, the animation is frankly appalling, but what do you expect for an independent studio in 2005 with just about $8 million to their name? But everything else just works so well. I would still like to see the original version of Hoodwinked where we have the original actors, but I still think the ones we got in the final product do a great job. Some highlights, of course, being Patrick Warburton, who was in both versions of the film, Glenn Close, and Andy Dick. I don't like complimenting Andy Dick, but you know what? He did a great job in Hoodwinked, so I'll give him that. And of course, as many people are trying to tell others here on YouTube, this is one wickedly funny movie. Just about every joke here lands. There's banter, pop culture references, fairy tale references, subversion gags, song numbers. Everything you could think of, Hoodwinked tries at least one of those types, as long as it belongs in a PG animated film, of course. When you get past the weird-looking animation and, yes, the time when it came out, Hoodwinked becomes a solid feature that's certainly worth a rewatch once you've gotten a bit older. Now, as for the sequel, let's not go there, okay? Number 2, Fat Albert 2004. Let's just ignore the guy who created the show for a minute. This is one of the sweetest, most charming family films I've ever seen. It's not a good adaptation of Fat Albert, which is weird because you-know-who was also involved in this movie, but that's okay. It's able to do its own thing with only slight references to the source material, and make something that never fails to put a smile on my face. It's got family and friendly togetherness, this constant cheery vibe, and yes, some good laughs. For those who haven't seen the complete history of Fat Albert 2004, this was actually the mission statement behind the movie. It was being released at a time where everybody was getting gloomier and cynical, so the crew wanted to release something that could lift people's spirits. If you're ever finding yourself down or feeling alone or something, pop this movie in. Even if you don't really relate to the stuff going on or even know much about the Fat Albert show, you might find yourself getting attached to the characters and sympathizing with their struggles. Everybody in this movie does their own thing, goes through their own journey, and learns their own lesson. There's a lot going on in this short hour-and-a-half runtime, but they do a lot with what they've been given. So hey, check it out again today. And number 1, this should surprise nobody, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. Just go watch this video. Again, aside from the voice, I stand by everything I said. Kind of an anticlimactic ending, I know, but I've already talked about this thing so much over the last 5 years, I think the rest of what I've done kind of speaks for itself, you know? But really, let's be honest, we all knew this was coming. Well, folks, thanks for watching the video. What did you guys think? What are your thoughts on some of the movies on my list, and what are some of them on yours? Comment below and let me know, because I'm always excited to hear what you guys have to say. Alright folks, thanks for watching the video, and I'll see you guys next time.